Margaret is 65 years old. It is a Tuesday morning. She is standing in her kitchen making her usual cup of coffee. There is no warning, no sudden chest pain, no dramatic gasp for air. Suddenly, the ceramic mug simply slips from her fingers and shatters on the floor. She looks down, confused. She tries to lift her left hand to wipe the counter, but her arm feels like it is made of wet cement. It refuses to move. She tries to call out to her husband in the next room, but the words do not form. They come out broken, scrambled, like a radio losing its signal. She walks to the hallway mirror, dragging her left foot slightly. Half of her face is drooping. Margaret is having a stroke. But here is the part of the story that almost no one talks about. Before the ambulance even turned onto her street, before any doctor administered a single drug, Margaret did something shockingly simple. Something so counterintuitive that the emergency room physician later told her family it likely saved her from permanent, irreversible brain damage. She didn't panic. She didn't take an aspirin. And most importantly, she didn't just sit down in her armchair to wait for it to pass. She immediately changed her body position and activated a built-in biological survival system. To understand why what she did is so critical, we need to look at the terrifying reality of the clock. Every 40 seconds, someone suffers a stroke. But the medical system rarely talks about the first 3 minutes. Those first 180 seconds before the paramedics arrive dictate whether a person walks out of the hospital a week later or spends the rest of their life trapped in a wheelchair, unable to speak. Let's zoom in. Let's look at the microscopic anatomy of what is happening inside Margaret's head in that exact moment. Think of the human brain as a vast, glowing city at night. It is powered by millions of lights, billions of neurons, all depending on a constant high-speed flow of electricity. That electricity is oxygenated blood, delivered through an incredibly delicate network of biological highways. Now, imagine a thrombus, a blood clot. It formed quietly, perhaps years ago, deep in the hardened arteries of the leg or in the chambers of an irregular heart. It breaks free. It travels upward through the carotid artery in the neck, and it enters the city. Suddenly, it wedges into a microscopic pathway. It blocks the highway. Instantly, the blood flow stops. The oxygen is cut off. This is called ischemia. And in that specific neighborhood of the brain, the lights begin to flicker. The neurons responsible for lifting the left arm lose power. The arm drops. The neurons responsible for speech short-circuit. The words scramble. But here is the greatest trap, the fatal error that kills thousands of seniors every year. Sometimes that clot is small enough that the pressure of the blood pushes it slightly, allowing a trickle of oxygen to pass through. The lights in the city come back on. The arm feels normal again. The speech returns. The symptoms fade after just 60 seconds. Doctors call this a transient ischemic attack, or a TIA. People commonly call it a mini-stroke, but there is absolutely nothing mini about it. A TIA is the brain pulling the fire alarm. It is a desperate warning that a massive, catastrophic blockage is moments away. And this is where the psychology of aging becomes deadly. The Stoic generation, the people who were raised not to complain, not to make a fuss, fall into a predictable and fatal pattern. When the symptoms fade, they take a deep breath, they sit down in a comfortable chair, and they say, "I just stood up too fast. I'm just tired. I will sit here and rest until I feel better." That quiet endurance, that refusal to act, is a death sentence for a starving brain. Because the clock has started, the clot is still there, the fire is still burning. And by simply sitting in a chair, they are forcing their weakened heart to fight against the most powerful invisible force on Earth, gravity. Let's look at the gravity trick and why the natural instinct to sit or stand during a stroke is exactly what destroys the brain. And why the natural instinct to sit or stand during a stroke is exactly what destroys the brain. The invisible enemy. Gravity is not just a force that keeps your feet on the floor. It is a constant, unrelenting pressure that your cardiovascular system has to fight every second of every day. Think of your heart as a water pump at the bottom of a skyscraper. The brain is the penthouse. Under normal conditions, the pump is strong, the pipes are clear, the water reaches the top floor easily. But what happens during an ischemic stroke? A massive piece of debris blocks the main pipe. The pressure drops. The pump starts struggling. It is beating frantically, trying to force water around the blockage. And this is the moment where human instinct fails us. When people feel dizzy or their arm goes numb or their vision blurs, their first instinct is to find a chair and sit upright. Or worse, they stand still, leaning against a counter, waiting for the feeling to return. This is a biological catastrophe. Because when you are sitting or standing, you are forcing a struggling, terrified heart to pump blood uphill. You are asking the pump to push water straight up against the full weight of gravity. And during a stroke, the heart simply cannot do it. The blood pressure in the brain collapses. The neurons, which have no ability to store oxygen, begin to suffocate. Within 3 minutes, irreversible cell death begins. The brain tissue starts to dissolve. The emergency generator. But what if you could change the rules of physics? What if you could turn gravity from your greatest enemy into an emergency generator? This is the Yat Gravity-Assisted Technique. And this is exactly what Margaret did when she dropped her coffee cup. She didn't try to walk to the couch. She didn't try to stand. She immediately lowered herself to the kitchen floor. She lay flat on her back. And then she did the one thing that bought her precious, life-saving time. She grabbed the lower shelf of a cabinet and she pulled her legs up into the air, resting her calves on a kitchen chair. She elevated her legs 12 inches above her heart. Why does this simple movement change everything? Because right now, inside your legs and abdomen, you have a massive reservoir of blood pooling in your veins. When you elevate your legs, you open the floodgates. Gravity immediately pulls that entire liter of reserve blood down from your legs straight into your chest. You are effectively giving yourself a natural blood transfusion. The heart suddenly fills with a massive volume of blood without having to work for it. And because you are lying completely flat, the heart no longer has to pump uphill to reach the brain. It is pumping on a level plane. The pressure increases, the blood flow surges forward, and that extra surge of pressure is often just enough to push a trickle of oxygenated blood around the clot, or through the collateral vessels, the tiny side streets of the brain. You keep the city lit, you keep the neurons alive. This single position change can help maintain cerebral perfusion, the flow of blood to the brain tissue, long enough for the ambulance to arrive and administer the clot-busting drugs. It is not a cure, but it is a bridge between permanent disability and full recovery. But position is only the physical part of the equation. There is a chemical reaction happening in your body during those 3 minutes that is just as dangerous as the clot itself. It is the invisible chokehold of panic. And unless you know how to break it, elevating your legs will not be enough. Let's look at the oxygen anchor and the precise breathing protocol you must use while you are lying on that floor. The panic threat. Imagine you are lying on the kitchen floor. Your left arm is dead weight. You can't feel the side of your face. Your spouse is on the phone with the emergency operator, their voice trembling. What is your body doing? Your primal survival instinct takes over. You are terrified. Your brain dumps a massive amount of adrenaline into your bloodstream. Your heart begins to race, and you start to hyperventilate. You take short, sharp, rapid breaths into the top of your chest. In any other emergency, if you were running from a fire, this adrenaline is exactly what you need. But during an ischemic stroke, this panic is a biological chokehold. It is actively destroying the remaining healthy tissue in your brain. Why? Because panic triggers the sympathetic nervous system. It triggers fight or flight. And the physical response to fight or flight is severe vasoconstriction. Every blood vessel in your body, including the delicate highways in your brain, clamps down tight. The pipes shrink. They become narrow and rigid. So now you have a clot blocking a major artery, and your own panic is shrinking the tiny collateral side streets that are trying to bypass the blockage. You are strangling the city. The oxygen you do have cannot get through. The 4-2-6 protocol. This is where you must override your instinct. You are lying flat. Your legs are elevated 12 inches. The gravity trick is working. Now you have to open the pipes. You have to be the anchor. You must manually force your nervous system out of fight or flight and into rest and digest. You do this through a specific rhythmic breathing pattern. It is not deep panicked gasping. It is controlled mathematical respiration. We call it the 4-2-6 protocol. Here is exactly what Margaret did as she stared up at her kitchen ceiling. She closed her mouth. She inhaled slowly and deeply through her nose, pulling the air all the way down into her belly for 4 seconds. She held that full breath, letting the oxygen saturate her lungs for 2 seconds. And then she exhaled very slowly through slightly parted lips, as if she were blowing out a candle, for 6 full seconds. 4 seconds in, 2 seconds hold, 6 seconds out. She did it again and again. This is not a meditation trick. This is a powerful physiological intervention. When your exhale is longer than your inhale, you stimulate the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the master switch of your parasympathetic nervous system. When you flip that switch, a cascade of chemical commands floods your body. The adrenaline drops, the heart rate slows down to a powerful, steady rhythm, and most importantly, the command is sent for vasodilation. The blood vessels relax, the pipes expand, the highways in your brain open up as wide as possible. Now, the massive volume of reserve blood you pulled from your legs using the gravity trick can flow freely through those widened collateral arteries. You are pushing high oxygen blood into the starving neurons. You are keeping the lights on. By combining the physical position, legs elevated, with the chemical intervention, 4-2-6 breathing, you are building a fortress of oxygen around the dying tissue. You are buying time. And in stroke medicine, time is brain. Every minute you delay permanent damage is a month of rehabilitation you save. But what happens after the ambulance arrives? What happens if some damage is already done? Are you doomed to live with the consequences, or is the brain capable of rebuilding the broken city? Let's look at the incredible science of neuroplasticity and the daily habits that build a stroke-resistant brain. And the daily habits that build a stroke-resistant brain. The living city. For decades, medicine believed a terrifying myth. We believed that the brain was a fixed, rigid machine. We believed that if a section of the city went dark, if a highway was destroyed by a stroke, it was gone forever. We now know that is completely false. Your brain is not a machine. It is a living, breathing, adaptable ecosystem.
It possesses a miraculous ability called neuroplasticity. When a major artery is damaged, the brain does not simply give up. It begins to build side streets. It reroutes the traffic. Healthy neurons stretch out and form new connections to take over the jobs of the dead cells. It learns how to move the arm again. It learns how to find the words again. But this rebuilding process requires raw materials, and it requires a cardiovascular system that is primed to deliver them. The daily armor. This brings us to the ultimate question. How do you prevent the city from losing power in the first place? You do not wait for the clot to strike. You build a stroke-resistant brain every single morning. And it starts the moment you wake up. Remember, when you sleep, your blood pools. It thickens. If you jump out of bed immediately, you risk a massive pressure spike. Instead, you must activate your body's second heart. Before your feet even touch the mattress, sit on the edge of the mattress. Take 3 slow, deep breaths, expanding your lungs fully. Then, begin to pump your calves. Lift your heels up, then your toes, up and down, rhythmically. This simple movement activates the soleus muscle in your lower leg. This muscle acts as a powerful hydraulic pump. It forces the pooled, sluggish blood out of your veins and pushes it back up to your chest. You are waking up your cardiovascular system gently. You are stimulating the endothelium, the delicate inner lining of your blood vessels, to release nitric oxide, keeping the pipes flexible and wide open. The conclusion. Aging does not mean you are destined to decline. It simply means your body requires more intelligence, more strategy. You can no longer afford to ignore the subtle signals. If your arm goes numb, if your vision blurs, if the words escape you, do not be stoic. Do not sit in your chair and wait for it to pass. The clock is ticking. The neurons are suffocating. You must take control. Get to the floor. Lay flat. Elevate your legs 12 inches to send the reserve blood to your brain. Breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. Force your blood vessels to open. Force the oxygen through the blockade. Let gravity do the work while you wait for the sirens. Margaret did not survive because she was lucky. She survived because she was prepared. She transformed her panic into purposeful action. You have the exact same power. Your body is equipped with emergency protocols. You just need to know how to use them. Do not fear the stroke. Prepare for it and protect the city.